We continue our series on 20th century cinema, transitioning from the silent films of the 1920s to the era of sound. The 1930s marked the beginning of Hollywood's golden age, which lasted until the decline of the studio system in the 1950s. This decade also saw the introduction of Universal's iconic monster films like Frankenstein and Dracula, which we'll cover in a separate video. Louis Milestone's anti-war drama, based on Eric Maria Remarque's novel, tells the story of the so-called lost generation and the disillusionment of war. What promised glory, heroism, and patriotism turned into a brutal, inhumane nightmare. The film won 2 major Oscars, Best Picture and Best Director. From a technical perspective, it was the first sound film to use a massive, mobile, crane-mounted camera for large-scale battle scenes, and one of the earliest to employ extensive use of mobile cameras. Ethically, it was a landmark portrayal of World War I, serving as a harbinger of the looming Second World War. Lew Ayres, who played Paul Boehmer, a soldier-turned-pacifist during the war, was so profoundly affected by the film and his character that he refused military service during World War II on grounds of conscience, sparking widespread debate and controversy. During the sound era, Charlie Chaplin released another of his silent masterpieces, City Lights, a romantic tragicomedy and one of the most heartwarming and tender love stories in the history of cinema. In the film, the tramp falls in love with a blind flower girl and becomes her benefactor, despite having no financial means, but possessing a big heart in deep love. Chaplin seems to be the last filmmaker who transformed sentimentality into high art and who truly never succumbed to cynicism. A luxurious classic Hollywood film directed by Edmund Goulding, Grand Hotel is crafted in the style of the opulence and glamour of Art Deco. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture and featured a star-studded cast. The film cleverly depicts the idle, extravagant society of the 1920s and 30s. It stars 2 of the greatest film divas of Hollywood's golden age, Greta Garbo and Joan Crawford, alongside the Barrymore brothers, John and Lionel, the ancestors of Drew Barrymore. The story, set in one place and time, begins and ends with the same wise phrase, which applies both literally to the hotel and its revolving guests, and figuratively to the world at large. People come, people go, nothing ever changes. Howard Hawks' film was Hollywood's response to the rising crime wave during the Great Depression, particularly the violence of Al Capone's mafia organization. Critics widely agreed that the film was shockingly violent, though rumors suggest that Hawks initially envisioned an even more brutal and bloody version. Ultimately, he had to soften the tone to meet the demands of the film's distributors. A masterpiece of Japanese silent cinema by the renowned director Yasujiro Ozu, Passing Fancy tells a melodramatic story of a love triangle. 2 factory workers, one older and one younger, fall in love with the same woman. However, she rejects the older man, while the younger man ultimately rejects her. Beneath this romantic drama lies a poignant exploration of family dynamics, focusing on the complex relationship between a father and son and the generational divide. Passing Fancy was a turning point in Ozu's career. Having grown up in one of Tokyo's poorest neighborhoods, Ozu had previously immersed his films in narratives of glamour, luxury cars, upscale restaurants, romanticized crime, or the carefree lives of students. However, with Passing Fancy, he turned his focus to the working-class neighborhoods of Tokyo, portraying the struggles of impoverished laborers and exploring themes of family, daily life, and the bonds between parents and children. One of the best, if not the best, works by the master of screwball comedy, Frank Capra. This adventurous and fast-paced romantic story stars Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert and is one of the first road movies in cinema history. It tells the tale of a bold and headstrong young woman who meets a witty and unlucky journalist who becomes her constant companion. Their initial animosity naturally turns into love. Capra's film made history by being the first to win all 5 major Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and both Best Actor and Best Actress. In 1937, Disney released the first-ever full-length animated film in color and with synchronized sound, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The project took nearly 3 years to complete, involved 570 artists, produced approximately 1 million drawings, and cost $1.5 million to make. The film was a massive success for the studio, earning over $8 million and receiving rave reviews from critics. In 1944, the film had its first re-release. Roy and Walt Disney initiated this to generate much-needed revenue during the challenging period of World War II. This event marked the beginning of a new tradition for Disney, the re-release of their animated classics. In 1939, as the Great Depression was ending and the world stood on the brink of war, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer released a film adaptation of Lyman Frank Baum's novel about the magical land of Oz, a story of friendship, kindness, and courage. Entirely filmed on sound stages using the 3-strip Technicolor process, it was a bold and ambitious project. It didn't break even until its re-release in 1949, but the long arc of history would be good to The Wizard of Oz. It's the most-watched movie of all time, according to the Library of Congress, and was one of the first 25 films to be included in the National Film Registry of the United States. John Ford, the only director in history to win 4 Academy Awards for Best Director, remains the master of the classic American Western. He first developed his style and signature aesthetics with Stagecoach, a film that marked the beginning of his use of the picturesque Monument Valley prairies as natural backdrops. It also marked his first collaboration with actor John Wayne, who would later earn the title of King of Westerns. What was unconventional for the genre at the time was the focus not on chases and gunfights, but on the personalities of the characters, whose differing morals clash in the confined space of a stagecoach. Ford's film ultimately received 7 Academy Award nominations, including for Best Picture. This epic love and war film, directed by Victor Fleming, tells the story of the American Civil War and the strong-willed, suffering woman at its center. It explores the transformation of her character under pressure and her growth into maturity. After the fiery chemistry between Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable, and after winning 8 Academy Awards, no director dared to attempt another adaptation of Margaret Mitchell's novel. The 1939 film remains the only portrayal of the complex love between Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler, set against the turbulent backdrop of American history.